The betrayal in the stars. The stars had always been a place of wonder for humanity, a sky full of promises and mysteries. But on that night, the stars turned red with fire and betrayal. The Galactic Council had gathered in their grand chamber, only. Weeks earlier, their voices cold and proud, they spoke of peace enforcement, of maintaining order. But everyone in the room knew what it meant. It meant blood. It meant silence. It meant death for anyone who dared to stand against them. Earth had many friends among the stars, small colonies and rising civilizations who traded food, metal, and knowledge. They laughed with humans, they grew with humans. But to the Council, those friendships were dangerous. Alliances that could one day threaten their rule. And so, without warning, the Council fleets moved. The first message came as static, broken cries from the Lorian colonies. Screens flickered with flames. A woman's voice screamed for help before the transmission cut off. Hours later, more signals arrived, every one of them filled with terror. Children crying, buildings falling, ships burning in orbit. The Council called it justice. They said the Lorian people had betrayed the order of the galaxy. They said humans had poisoned them with ideas of freedom. But Earth saw the truth. It was no trial, no mistake. It was massacre. In cities across Earth, people gathered around giant screens, their faces pale, their fists clenched. They watched as allies were hunted down, as worlds they once visited were turned into ashes. Even children understood this was not war, it was murder. In the great halls of Earth's government, the leaders argued. Some said Earth should stay silent, that they were too small, too fragile. But others slammed their fists on the tables and shouted, "If we stay silent now, then tomorrow it will be us burning in the dark." In a hidden chamber deep under the oceans, the admirals of Earth's fleets gathered. They sat around a round table, their faces hard. They knew the Council thought of Earth as weak, as disorganized. But they also knew something the Council had forgotten. Humanity had always fought with its back against the wall, and it had always survived. Admiral Reyes, an old man with silver hair and sharp eyes, looked at the other commanders. He did not raise his voice. He did not give speeches. He simply whispered, "No more." And in that moment, every admiral, every captain, every soldier in that room felt the same fire in their chest. But fire alone was not enough. Earth's fleets were small, their weapons outdated compared to the Council's titanic armadas. The Council had thousands of warships. Earth had only hundreds. The Council had centuries of dominance. Earth had only scars and stubborn will. Still, in the factories of Luna, in the shipyards of Mars, in the hidden docks floating in the asteroid belt, machines roared back to life. Men and women worked day and night, building, welding, creating ships faster than ever before. Sparks lit the darkness as hammers rang. The stars echoed with the sound of war being forged. Meanwhile, on Earth, the streets trembled with anger. Crowds chanted the names of fallen allies. Banners of the lost worlds were carried through the cities. The people no longer asked if they should fight. They demanded it. Mothers cried for vengeance. Fathers gave their sons to the fleet. Young men and women lined up outside recruitment, stations ready to sacrifice everything. The Council thought Earth would be afraid, but fear turned into fury. Still, shadows of doubt hung heavy. What chance did Earth truly have? How could a small blue planet stand against the might of the Council? Whispers of despair floated in the air. But then, another message arrived. Not from allies, not from rebels, but from a Council soldier himself, a defector. The soldier's face appeared on a secret transmission, his uniform torn, his voice shaking. "They are not gods," he said. "They bleed, they burn, their ships can fall." His eyes burned with both fear and hope. "And if there is one people who can make them fall, it is you, humans." That message spread like wildfire. It was no longer only Earth that watched, it was the whole galaxy. Hidden races, enslaved colonies, outlaws hiding in the dark, all of them listened, all of them whispered the same question. Could it be true? Could Earth be the one to break the Council's chains? Back in the command chambers, Admiral Reyes looked up at the map of stars, the red zones where allies had been massacred, the flashing symbols of Council fleets moving closer. He felt the weight of history on his shoulders. He thought of the screams, the fires, the betrayal, and he knew there was no turning back. "The galaxy thinks we are too small," he said, quietly to his officers. "Let us show them what happens when the small refuse to bow." And so, in the quiet before the storm, in the betrayal of the stars, Earth began to prepare, not for survival, but for vengeance. Because when the Council massacred Earth's allies, they had made a mistake. They had awakened humanity, and humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity strikes back, the call to arms. The Council thought Earth would cry and hide. They thought humans would bow and beg for mercy. But the flames of betrayal only hardened hearts. In the capital of Earth, a meeting was called. Leaders of every nation, every colony, every hidden base gathered in one hall. The air was heavy with smoke and whispers. Screens above their heads still showed images of burning worlds, worlds that once traded with Earth, worlds that once called humans brothers. Some leaders shook with fear. They spoke of surrender. They said humanity was too small, too weak. But their voices were drowned by others who refused to kneel. "If we surrender now," one shouted, slamming his fist on the table, "we surrender the future of every child yet to be born." For the first time in centuries, humanity stood united. Flags that once clashed now stood side by side. Enemies of the past now shook hands. Earth became not a divided world, but a single people with one goal: survival. Factories roared awake. The hum of engines filled the skies. In orbit above Earth, old shipyards that had rusted in silence came back to life. Sparks flew as workers repaired hulls, weapons, engines. Every corner of human space echoed with the sound of construction. On Mars, miners left their tunnels and carried weapons instead. On Luna, engineers who once built domes for crops now built cannons for war in the asteroid belt. Smugglers and outlaws offered their ships, saying they too had lost families to the Council's cruelty. It was not only soldiers who prepared, it was everyone. Mothers stitched uniforms, children carried food to workers, scientists unlocked forbidden designs hidden for decades. Weapons humanity swore never to use again now whispered back to life. In the quiet of a secret base, a weapon called the Spear of Dawn was uncovered. It was a railgun larger than any ship, capable of splitting a cruiser in half with one shot. Its blueprints had been locked away for fear of escalation. Now it was polished, tested, and aimed at the stars. The Council sent more propaganda. Their voices boomed across the galaxy. Earth is reckless. Earth is doomed. Resistance will be crushed. But for every word they spoke, humans answered with silence and steel. In the great academy of Earth's fleet, young cadets trained until their hands bled. Simulations showed impossible battles, 10 enemies against 1. But the cadets did not break. They said only one phrase again and again: "We fight." Admiral Reyes walked among them. His presence calm, his eyes sharp. He spoke little, but his silence carried more weight than speeches. The cadets looked at him and felt pride, because he was proof that humanity could endure. Not all was strength. Shadows of fear moved too in the streets. Of Earth's cities, people whispered of the Council's size, their endless fleets, the thousands of ships that could blot out a sun. Some asked if Earth was marching to suicide, but the answer always came from someone standing nearby. Better to die standing than live kneeling, and the whisper would spread again across the stars. Eyes watched. Enslaved races, broken empires, forgotten colonies. They all heard of Earth's decision. Some laughed and said humans were fools. Others prayed the humans might succeed, but one thing was certain: the galaxy was no longer the same. On the day Earth declared its intent, millions gathered in front of the United Fleet Command. The banners of destroyed worlds were raised high. Names of fallen allies were carved into the walls. The crowd was silent as Admiral Reyes stepped onto the platform. His voice was low but steady. "The Council believes they rule the stars," he said. "But the stars belong to those who dare to fight for them. Today we rise, not for conquest, but for justice. We fight for the voices that were silenced. We fight for every world that will burn if we do nothing. We fight because we must, and we will not stop until the Council learns the truth." Humans kneel to no one. The roar of the crowd shook the earth itself. That night, fleets lifted off, engines burning like blue suns. Ships moved into the dark void one after another. Small corvettes, heavy cruisers, carriers built from old freighters, every vessel armed and ready. They did not look like the shining fleets of the Council, but they carried something the Council had long forgotten: determination. Families stood at the launch pads, watching fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters walk into ships that might never return. They cried, but they did not beg them to stay. They saluted them because all of humanity understood now. This was not one nation's war. This was not one people's war. It was the war of all Earth. Deep in the command bunker, Reyes stood over the star map, his officers at his side. Council fleets glowed. Red, massive, endless. Earth's fleets glowed blue, small, scattered, fragile. But in the silence of that room, a fire stronger than numbers burned. Tomorrow, Reyes whispered, the galaxy will see who we are. And so, under banners of vengeance, with hearts burning brighter than their ship's engines, humanity answered the betrayal. They did not beg. They did not bow. They rose. The call to arms had been made, and humanity was ready. First strike at dawn. The human fleet moved in silence. In the cold emptiness beyond Saturn's rings, dozens of warships floated like shadows, their engines dimmed, their weapons locked. Only faint blue lights flickered on their hulls. It was the first time humanity's ships had gathered in such numbers, and yet compared to the Council's mighty armadas, they looked small, fragile, almost insignificant. But the humans carried something the Council did not. They carried rage, and rage burned brighter than any star. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. A swarm of red dots marked the enemy patrol, a Council flotilla of destroyers and cruisers. They had been sent to guard the ruins of the Lorian colonies, the same worlds the Council had massacred only weeks before. Reyes spoke softly, but his voice carried steel. This will be our first strike, he said. The galaxy must see that humans will not kneel. The order was passed quietly through. The fleet. Captains checked their crews, young men and women strapped into their stations. Engineers whispered prayers as they brought weapons online. The ships of Earth trembled, not with fear, but with hunger. Hunger for justice. The Council. Patrol cruised slowly, confident. Their voices laughed across open channels, mocking Earth's silence. They never imagined the humans were already here, hidden in the black, watching, waiting. Reyes lifted his hand, then lowered it. Fire, he said. The silence of space shattered. Railguns thundered. Streaks of molten metal cut across the void. Missiles ignited and tore through the darkness. Beams of laser fire lit the black like dawn breaking. The human fleet moved as one. The first Council cruiser never saw the shot that killed it. Its hull split open in a flash of blue light. Fire spilled into the vacuum. Bodies drifted into the cold. The second ship tried to maneuver but collided with debris, its engines tearing apart. The Council flotilla panicked. They had expected easy. Patrol duty, not an ambush. Their voices screamed orders, their guns blazed, but the humans were already moving, darting between asteroid shadows, striking from angles the Council never thought possible. Target destroyed. A young lieutenant cried out aboard the Iron Spear, her voice shaking with disbelief. We got them, sir, we really got them. But victory came at a cost. The Council's return fire slammed into the horizon. A frigate with 200 souls, the ship's shields burned out in seconds. Flames spread through its corridors. Crew screamed as the hull cracked. Reyes heard the last transmission. A captain's voice, calm but broken. For Earth. And then silence. The bridge of the Resolute fell silent too. No one spoke. But every face hardened. Grief became fuel, and the fight grew fiercer. The Council flotilla, larger and stronger, tried to regroup, but humans refused to give them time. Ships darted in and out like wolves, railguns hammering, missiles bursting. The void itself seemed to roar. Minutes stretched into eternity. Fire filled the black. Wreckage floated across the battlefield, twisted metal and shattered lives. But at last the red dots on the tactical display began to vanish. One by one, the Council's patrol was broken, their proud cruisers reduced to burning husks. Then, silence returned. Reyes stood still, his eyes on the stars. He knew what had just happened. This was not just a victory. It was a message. The Council had believed humans would hide, would cower, but now the galaxy had seen. Earth would fight, and Earth could win. Reports came in from across the fleet. Cheers erupted as crews embraced. Tears rolled down faces. They had struck the first blow. They had avenged the first screams. Yet even in victory, the cost was clear. The horizon was gone. 200 names now carved into history. Families back home would never see their loved ones again. But instead of despair, the loss ignited something deeper. On the bridge, Reyes spoke once more, his voice heavy but proud. "Remember their names," he said, "because today, they lit the fire that will never go out." The message of the battle spread faster than light. Smugglers, traitors, rebels, even slaves whispered the story. The humans attacked a council fleet and won. The words repeated across stations and colonies. Hope sparked in places where only fear had lived before. But the council too heard the story, and their halls shook with fury. They called humans arrogant, reckless, doomed. Orders were given to send larger fleets so vast they would blot out the skies of Earth. They promised to end humanity in one crushing blow. Still, in the hearts of humans, fear no longer ruled. For at dawn, among the ruins of their allies, humanity had risen. The first strike had been made, the first blood had been answered, and the Council now knew something they had tried to forget. Humans may be small, but they do not break. They fight, they endure. And when they are betrayed, they strike back harder than anyone could imagine. And so, as the fleet drifted among wreckage, engines glowing softly in the dark, a vow spread quietly through every ship, from the lowest recruit to the highest admiral. This is only the beginning. The enemy awakens. The Council had always believed themselves untouchable. For centuries, their fleets ruled the stars. Their laws bound entire galaxies. No world dared to rise. No race dared to defy. But now, the whispers spread faster than light. Humans struck the Council fleet, the whispers said. And the humans won. At first, the Council dismissed it. They said it was false. A rumor spread by rebels, but then images arrived. Footage of burning cruisers, shattered hulls drifting in silence, patrol ships torn apart by weapons too primitive to matter. And yet, those primitive weapons had killed. The Council chamber shook with fury. Voices of 100 alien rulers roared. Some demanded Earth be punished immediately. Others called for the extermination of humanity. One voice echoed above the rest. If they are not destroyed now, they will inspire others. The Council listened, and for the first time in centuries they felt something they had forgotten. Fear. Orders were given. Fleets were mobilized. Not patrols, not small strike groups, but entire armadas. Ships so numerous they blotted out the light of suns as they moved. They called it the Purge Campaign. Its purpose was simple: erase Earth before its fire spread. Across the galaxy, propaganda screamed, "Earth is reckless, Earth is doomed, resistance will be crushed." Posters showed human fleets shattered, images designed to make colonies laugh at the idea of humans fighting back. But the truth was harder to silence. Smugglers carried stories, traitors whispered news, slaves in the dark mines passed the tale from mouth to mouth. The humans fought and they won. On worlds enslaved for centuries, hope stirred, weak, trembling, but alive. Back on Earth, the fleet knew what was coming. Sensors lit up with enemy movements, thousands of ships gathering on the edges of human space. Admiral Reyes stood before the map, red lights blooming like fire across the galaxy. He whispered, "The storm has awoken." In the streets of Earth, fear spread. Some cried that the end was near, but others clenched their fists tighter. The people no longer asked if the Council would come, they asked when, and they prepared. Mothers held their children close. Fathers trained with rifles. Even elders whispered that if the Council came to their soil, they would not bow. They would fight with their last breath. In the fleet academies, new cadets poured in, not boys and girls, but soldiers already hardened by loss. They trained until their bodies broke, then trained again. Every simulation showed impossible odds, but no one quit. The word retreat was erased from their minds. Meanwhile, the Council fleets moved like a tidal wave. Their commanders sneered at the thought of resistance. Earth is nothing. They laughed, a stone in the path of giants. But in private, their eyes burned with unease, for if humans could kill once, they could kill again. Small rebellions sparked in distant systems, colonies testing the chains of the Council. Every one of them whispered Earth's name. If they can rise, why not us? This frightened the Council more than battleships ever could, because they ruled not with love but with fear. And now that fear was cracking, Rhea's knew Earth's fleet was too small to meet the enemy head-on. He gathered his captains, their faces lined with exhaustion and fire. He spoke quietly. We cannot match them in numbers, but numbers are not everything. We will strike where they are blind. We will cut where they are soft, and when they expect us to break, we will endure. The room fell silent, and then every captain nodded, their voices steady. For Earth. The first signs of the enemy came near the Kuiper Belt, long range. Sensors caught shadows moving, dozens, then hundreds of ships, the vanguard of the Council's purge. The alarm spread through the fleet. Crews rushed to stations, weapons charged. Children watched the skies from Earth's surface, knowing that beyond the blue was fire gathering. Families whispered prayers to old gods and knew. Some prayed for victory. Others simply prayed that their loved ones might come home. But even in the shadow of doom, hope glowed. In the dark reaches of space, encrypted messages arrived at Earth, not from allies but from strangers. Fire and blood. The storm came at last, far beyond Jupiter's orbit. The void itself trembled with fire. The Council Armada had arrived, a sea of warships stretching farther than the human eye could count. Their hulls glowed with the pride of centuries, banners of domination shining across the dark. To them, this was not a battle. This was an execution. But Earth did not kneel. Humanity's fleet gathered near a massive gas giant, its swirling storms burning red and gold. Lightning cracked across its surface like a living monster. Here, among the chaos of gravity and storms, the humans prepared their trap. Admiral Reyes stood at the center of the Resolute's bridge, his officers tense but steady. Before them, the map was filled with red. Hundreds of enemy ships advancing, each one larger, faster, more advanced than the humble warships of Earth. Reyes spoke quietly. They think size is victory, they will learn otherwise. The human fleet was smaller by far, only a fraction compared to the Council's tide, yet their ships moved like wolves, slipping between gravity wells, hiding in the shadows of the gas giant storms. The planet itself became their shield. The Council advanced with arrogance, their commanders laughed. They hide like insects, they sneered. We will burn them out. Their fleets fired blindly into the storms, beams of light tearing through the clouds but hitting nothing. Then the trap was sprung. From the shadow of the planet's rings, human ships burst forward. Railguns thundered, missiles screamed, lasers pierced the dark. The void lit up in sudden fire. A Council destroyer exploded. Before it even knew it was being hunted, another ship's engines were torn apart by a well-timed strike. The Council staggered, shocked. This was not the weak prey they had expected. This was not insects fleeing for mercy. This was wolves tearing at giants. The battle raged, fire against fire, blood against blood. Human ships darted in close, striking, fast before vanishing into the storms. Council cruisers tried to turn their massive guns, but they were too slow, too heavy. Every second, another ship died. On the Iron Spear, Captain Hale shouted through the chaos, "Aim for their engines. Don't give them a chance to breathe," his crew obeyed. Their railguns tearing through armor. The enemy cruiser before them burst apart in flames. Hale's ship shuddered as return fire grazed its hull. Alarms screamed, but the crew fought on. In the middle of the chaos, a human carrier released its hidden weapon, a squadron of experimental drones. Small, fast, armed with explosives, they swarmed like hornets, ramming into Council hulls, detonating with blinding fire. One by one, giant ships fell to the smallest machines humanity had ever built. But victory was not free. The Vanguard, a heavy cruiser of Earth, was surrounded, its engines torn apart, its shields broken. Enemy fire ripped through its decks. Crews screamed. Still the captain's voice came steady over the comms. "We hold the line for Earth." The ship detonated in a blaze of light, taking 3 council ships with it. Every death fueled the others. Every sacrifice hardened resolve. The council, furious now, pushed harder. Their fleets unleashing storms of fire. Massive beams cut through the void, tearing apart asteroids, shredding smaller vessels. Human ships twisted desperately to survive. Some did. Many did not. The battlefield filled with wreckage, twisted metal drifting like corpses among the stars. Reyes gripped the edge of his command chair, his knuckles white. "Hold," he ordered, his voice calm even as the bridge shook. "Every second we live is another wound in their pride." For hours the battle raged, neither side yielding. The void became a sea of flames, explosions painting, the dark with terrible beauty. Soldiers bled, ships died, hope and despair clashed with every strike, and yet through the fire and the blood humanity endured. When the dust cleared, the gas giant's orbit was littered with wreckage. Dozens of council ships burned, their armada scarred. The humans had paid with heavy losses, but they had not. Broken, their fleet still stood, their banners still waved. The galaxy watched, and the whispers grew louder. "The council can bleed." The slaves whispered, "The council can lose." The rebels whispered, "Hope spread like fire in dry grass." On Earth, news of the battle arrived. Families wept for the lost, but they also cheered for the victory. Streets filled with chants, names of fallen heroes echoed in the air. Humanity mourned, but humanity also rose taller, stronger, more united. In the council's chambers, silence reigned. The rulers who once laughed now stared at the reports in disbelief. Their fleets had faced a world they called primitive, and they had bled. "They will burn for this," one counselor hissed, but another whispered the words none wished to hear. "If humans can fight like this, then others will follow." And so, even as the council prepared more fleets, even as they swore vengeance, they knew the truth had escaped their chains. The galaxy had seen Earth's fire, and once the fire was lit, it could not be stopped. Allies in the shadows. The war had burned across the stars for months. Earth had fought bravely, but the cost was heavy. Cities on Mars lived in darkness, their power drained for the fleet. Families on Earth prayed every night, waiting for news of their sons and daughters who never returned. The Council kept sending larger armadas, determined to crush humanity with sheer numbers. Yet something strange began to happen. In the chaos of war, whispers moved through the void. Faint signals, hidden in old frequencies, reached human commanders. They were not threats, not warnings, but offers. At first, Earth's leaders thought it was a trick. The Council was famous for using lies to lure enemies into traps. But then, more messages came. They came from worlds that the Council had long claimed as loyal. Voices spoke in fear, but also in hope. They were not Council agents. They were rebels. One night, in the dark silence of Earth's fleet command, the Admiral listened to a transmission. The voice was broken, distorted by distance. "This is not a trap," it said. "We are survivors. Our people were enslaved by the Council for generations. We know their weaknesses. We can help you. If you fall, all hope is lost. If you fight, maybe the chains will break." The room fell silent. Soldiers and officers exchanged uneasy glances. For years, humans had believed they were alone against the galaxy. Now strangers spoke of rebellion, of old wounds, of revenge. "Can we trust them?" one officer whispered. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. Trust was dangerous, but war was more dangerous still. "We will listen," he said at last. Days later, a secret meeting was arranged in the shadows of a dying star. Human warships drifted among the debris, sensors alert, guns armed. From the darkness, ships appeared, not the massive, polished vessels of the Council, but worn, scarred machines. Some looked centuries old, patched together with stolen parts. From those ships came the rebels. They were not one species, but many. Tall, thin creatures with skin like glass. Small, hunched beings with glowing eyes. soldiers whose bodies bore scars from council whips. None looked strong alone, but together, they stood as a symbol of defiance. "We are what remains." "There," leader said. His voice was heavy like stone dragged across metal. "The council took our worlds, our families, our future, but not our will. We have fought in secret for centuries. Alone we are weak. With you, maybe we are something more." The humans listened in silence. The rebels offered more than words. They brought stolen codes that unlocked the council's encrypted orders. They revealed old war maps showing hidden supply lines and secret shipyards. They even offered ancient warships. Rusted, yes, but still deadly in the hands of desperate fighters. One young human officer could not hide his doubt. Why now? Why help us only after we bleed in the stars? The rebel leader did not flinch. His glowing eyes burned. "Because you are the first to strike them and survive. You are the first to make the council afraid. You are the first spark. In centuries. Without you, we are only shadows. With you, maybe we are fire." The room grew still. Every soldier felt the weight of his words. The alliance was not signed with papers or speeches. It was sealed with silence and nods, with the exchange of secrets and supplies. For the first time, humanity was not alone. Back on Earth, whispers spread among the soldiers. They spoke of strange, new allies who fought with them. Alien pilots who knew how to slip through council defenses. Engineers who could rebuild human weapons with alien hands. The council laughed when they heard the news. Their propaganda called it pathetic. Barbarians, banding together, scavengers clinging to humans like rats. But behind the council's laughter, fear began to grow. Because they remembered. They remembered how rebellions had nearly broken them in the past. They remembered the blood of uprisings, the flames of lost colonies. They remembered that unity was dangerous. And now, Earth was making unity real again. The rebels did not fight for glory. They fought for vengeance. Every strike against the council was fueled by centuries of pain. Human soldiers learned quickly that these allies would rather die than kneel. Some never even wore armor, charging into battles with nothing but fury in their hearts. The admiral watched this with quiet respect. Humanity had always believed it was the underdog, the fragile newcomer in a hostile galaxy. But now they saw others who had suffered even longer. Humanity was not the weakest. It was the boldest. The first to rise, but not the last. In the shadows of war, something greater was being born. Ships from Earth and rebel worlds flew side by side. Codes and strategies flowed like water. Trust did not come easily, but it grew with every battle survived together. For the first time, the council faced not one enemy, but many. And though their fleets were vast, their power no longer felt eternal. In the dark silence of the stars, a spark had turned into a flame, and soon that flame would become a firestorm. Earth strikes back, the council's throne world hung like a jewel in the black void, vast golden towers stretching from the planet's surface to the orbit above. Around it, fleets waited in layers like steel walls of a fortress. For centuries, no enemy had dared to come here. No one had even tried. The council believed this world untouchable, eternal. But on this day, something new came through the dark. At first, the council's commanders thought it was a trick of censors. A small fleet, scarred and patched, creeping out of the shadows. Human ships, flanked by vessels of rebel worlds, rusted, ancient, but still alive. Compared to the council armadas, they looked like ants charging a mountain. The council laughed, and then the humans lit the sky. The admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, silent as always. His officers watched him with tense eyes, waiting for orders. At last his voice came, low but sharp as steel. Strike. That one word unleashed chaos. Railguns roared. Missiles cut through the void. Rebel warships dove into the fire, shields breaking, guns blazing. Codes stolen from council vaults unlocked enemy defenses. Hidden gates opened where no gate should have been. The council fleets reeled, stumbling against enemies who should never have reached this far. The galaxy, watching from every corner, held its breath. Humanity was not running anymore. Humanity was at the gates of power itself. The battle was not fair. For every human ship, the Council had 20. Their weapons were older, heavier, crueler. But Earth had something else. They had fury. They had allies. They had nothing left to lose. A swarm of rebel craft sacrificed themselves, ramming enemy cruisers until both became fire. Human destroyers built in secret shipyards cut through ships far larger, moving with speed no Council commander expected. One rebel vessel, half falling apart, managed to slip past the outer defenses and fire on a massive orbital station. It exploded in a sunburst, and for the first time in centuries the throne world trembled. In the Council chamber, panic spread. The rulers, draped in golden robes, shouted at one another. Some demanded the humans be crushed. Others whispered of retreat. They had mocked Earth as primitive. They had dismissed the rebels as broken. Now those barbarians stood at their gates. The humans cannot win, one counselor hissed. They already have, another replied, her voice shaking. Above, the throne world, the Admiral's fleet pushed forward. But the cost was brutal. Human ships burned. Rebel voices vanished in static. Every victory was paid with blood. The Admiral watched silently as names of lost vessels scrolled across his command screens. He said nothing, but in his eyes burned a cold fire. One officer, voice trembling, asked, "Admiral, even if we win, will there be enough of us left?" The Admiral did not look away from the battlefield. "Enough to show the galaxy," he said, "that the Council can bleed." Then came the turning point. From deep space, the Council unleashed its last weapon, a fleet of dreadnoughts, each the size of cities armed with cannons that could shatter moons. They moved slowly but with unstoppable power. Entire rebel lines collapsed before them. Human ships died in bursts of flame. For a moment, it seemed the fight was over, but Earth had saved something too. From behind the shadows of the gas giant, nearby old machines awoke. Colossal war engines humanity had sworn never to use again. They were relics of a darker past, hidden for fear of what they represented. Now they came roaring into battle, metal giants armed with weapons no alien had ever seen. The galaxy had called humans primitive. Now they saw the truth. Humanity had been holding back. The clash shook the stars. Dreadnought against war engine, rebel fury against Council pride. Explosions lit the void until it seemed like dawn itself had come to the throne world. One by one, Council ships fell. Their lines broke. Their fear spread. Humanity and its allies cut through the last defenses and pressed toward the planet itself. On the surface, towers fell. The golden spires of the Council burned, and across the galaxy, enslaved worlds rose up at last. Seeing the Council bleed gave them courage. Shackles were broken. Flags of rebellion were raised. The Council's rule was ending, not just here, but everywhere. The Admiral stood silent as the throne world burned. His officers waited for a speech, a cry of victory. None came. At last he whispered only one sentence. "It is not over. It has only begun." Because he knew the truth. The Council was falling, yes, but the galaxy was vast, and power never vanished. Quietly. What had started as Earth's survival had become something greater. A fire had been lit, one that would spread far beyond human hands. In the end, when the smoke cleared, one fact could not be denied. Earth was no longer just a small world on the edge of the stars. It was the spark that burned the chains of the galaxy.